If you had walked into the British Museum any time in the last 140 years and asked to see the oldest map of the world, a curator would have taken you to room 55, opened a glass case, and shown you a piece of clay the size of your hand. It is brown. It is cracked. The left side is missing. Scratched into its surface is a diagram that for more than a century was treated as a curiosity. A circle inside a circle, with a few place names and some triangles sticking out from the rim. Interesting, scholars said. Primitive, they said. A Babylonian attempt at cartography. Nothing more. Then, in the summer of 2024, the British Museum's own curator of cuneiform picked it up, turned it over, and read the back. What he found on the reverse side of that tablet has not been formally challenged by any Assyriologist in the 2 years since. And what it describes, in damaged but legible cuneiform, is a set of travel directions to a place beyond the edge of the known world, where a traveler would find something as thick as a parsiktu-vessel, silhouetted against the dark sky on a mountain in a region the Babylonians called Urartu. Urartu is the Akkadian form of the Hebrew word Ararat. The tablet is catalogued as BM9-2687. It was excavated at the site of ancient Sippar, modern Tel Abu Haba in Iraq, by the Assyrian-born archaeologist Hormuzd Rassam during his campaign from 1880 to 1881 for the British Museum. It was registered in the museum on the 14th of July, 1882, and it has been there ever since. It measures 12.2 centimeters tall by 8.2 centimeters wide. It is unfired clay. It was never baked, which is why the surface is fragile and the left edge is gone. The front of the tablet shows the map, a pair of concentric circles, the inner one representing the known world and the outer one labeled 4 times with the same Akkadian word, Urartu. The bitter river, the cosmic salt ocean that the Babylonians believed encircled the entire earth. Inside the inner circle, a vertical pair of parallel lines runs from top to bottom. That is the Euphrates. Straddling it, drawn as a rectangle in the upper half, is Babylon. The map puts Babylon at the center of the world. Around it, labeled in cuneiform, are the territories the scribe considered worth naming. Assyria to the northeast, Der to the east, Susa, the capital of Elam, to the southeast, Bit Yakin, the Chaldean tribal territory of the southern marshes at the mouth of the river, Haban, a Kassite city, to the west. In the upper right quadrant, a small oval is labeled Urartu. The Tigris is not on the map. Neither is Egypt. Neither is the Mediterranean. The scribe knew these places existed. Every literate Babylonian of the first millennium knew about the Western Sea and the land of the pharaohs. Their absence tells you this is not a working geographic chart. It is a cosmological diagram, a statement about the shape of reality, not a tool for navigation. Radiating outward from the bitter river are triangles. 8 of them in the original design, though only 5 survive on the damaged tablet. These are the Nagu, the regions beyond the ocean. The places you reach after crossing 7 leagues of salt water, where the rules of the known world no longer apply. The text above the map, in 11 lines of cuneiform, describes how Marduk separated the land from the sea and created the beasts of the cosmos on top of the restless waters. Vipers, sea serpents, the Anzu bird, scorpion men, bull men, mountain goats, panthers, wolves, monkeys, ostriches, and chameleons. This is the same bestiary we encountered in the second video of this series, the 11 creatures of Tiamat. The bitter river is Tiamat's body. The map is drawn on her corpse. That primordial sea goddess was split in half by Marduk in the Enuma Elish, and the salt ocean that rings the known world on this map is literally what remains of her. The Babylonian scribe who drew this circle was drawing the boundary of Tiamat's corpse. Everything inside it is the new cosmos. Everything outside it is the old one, unfinished, unredeemed, populated by things that do not belong in the ordered world. Rassam himself excavated approximately 40 to 50,000 cuneiform tablets from the Ibabar temple of Shamash at Sippar, making it one of the largest single-site tablet recoveries in the history of archaeology. The map was set aside from the rest almost immediately, registered with an out-of-sequence museum number that suggests the catalogers recognized it as something unusual from the start. The first photograph and translation were published by F.E. Peiser in 1889 in the journal Zeitschrift für Assyriologie. The tablet has been restudied roughly once per generation since then by Weidner in 1922, Unger in 1931, and Horowitz in 1988. And then the text names 3 heroes who crossed the ocean and returned: Utnapishtim, Sargon of Akkad, and Nur-Dagan, king of Burshahanda. 3 men who traveled beyond the edge of the world and came back to tell the story. For 105 years, that was everything anyone could read on this tablet. The reverse side was too damaged, too fragmentary, too broken to make sense of. Then, in 1995, something happened in one of the British Museum's evening cuneiform classes. A volunteer student named Edith Horsley was sorting through a tray of unjoined fragments, thousands of small clay chips that had never been matched to their parent tablets, when she picked up a triangular sliver bearing a few signs. She showed it to her teacher, Dr. Irving Finkel, the museum's curator of cuneiform. Finkel recognized the join immediately. The fragment fit into the upper right gap of BM 92687. A gap that had been empty since the tablet was first published by F.E. Peiser in 1889. The conservation department glued it into place, and suddenly, for the first time, one of the neg on the reverse could be read clearly. It described a place called the Great Wall, 840 cubits high, roughly 420 meters, trees growing to 120 cubits, roughly 60 meters, and then this line: by day you cannot see in front of yourself. Wayne Horowitz of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem had already published the definitive study of the tablet in the journal Iraq in 1988. He incorporated the new fragment into his 1998 book Mesopotamian Cosmic Geography, published by Eisenbrauns. And with the join in place, Horowitz and Finkel could now align the text on the reverse with the triangles on the front. There are 8 nagu described on the reverse. The first and second are too damaged to read. The third says a winged bird cannot safely complete its journey. The fifth is the Great Wall, the Horsley fragment. The seventh describes cattle equipped with horns that run fast and reach an unreadable destination. The eighth describes a place where something dawns at its entrance, probably the eastern gate where the sun rises. The fourth nagu is the one that changed the conversation. The surviving cuneiform reads in Horowitz's transliteration that something in this region is as thick as a parsiktu-vessel, 20 fingers wide. The subject of the sentence is broken. Whatever is as thick as a parsiktu is lost in the damage. Only the measurement survives. The parsiktu is a Babylonian unit of capacity, roughly equivalent to 1 cubit or about 50 centimeters across. It appears in dozens of cuneiform texts as a grain measure. It is a perfectly ordinary word. Except for one thing. In the entire cuneiform record, spanning hundreds of thousands of tablets across 3,000 years of Mesopotamian writing. There is only one other text where the word parsiktu is used to describe the thickness of a physical object, rather than a volume of grain. That text is the Ark Tablet. The Ark Tablet is a small Old Babylonian clay tablet, about 11.5 by 6 centimeters, dating to roughly 1750 before the Common Era. It was brought to the British Museum in 1985 by a man named Douglas Simmons, whose father Leonard, an RAF pilot, had acquired it while serving in the Middle East in 1948. Finkel published it in his 2014 book, The Ark Before Noah, and it contains the oldest known detailed construction specifications for a flood vessel. The specifications are extraordinary. The Ark is not a boat. It is a giant round coracle, a kufar, 70 meters in diameter with sides 12 meters high, waterproofed with bitumen inside and out. The floor area is precisely 1 IKU, the standard Babylonian unit for a field. The animals enter shana shana, 2 by 2, the same phrase used in Genesis chapter 7, verse 9, previously unattested in any Mesopotamian flood text. A 1/3 scale replica was actually built in 2014 for a Channel 4 documentary called The Real Noah's Ark, and it floated. Line 14 of the Ark Tablet reads, in Finkel's translation, 30 ribs, which were 1 parsiktu-vessel thick, 10 nindan long. The parsiktu in the Ark Tablet describes the thickness of the wooden ribs of Utnapishtim's flood vessel. The parsiktu in the 4th nagu of the map of the world describes something of the same thickness in a region adjacent to Urartu beyond the Bitter River, at the edge of the known world. Finkel's reading, presented in the British Museum's Curator's Corner video on the 1st of August 2024, is this. If you crossed the Bitter River to the 4th nagu and climbed the mountain described in the text, you would see, silhouetted against the dark sky, the wooden ribs of the wreck of the Babylonian Ark, still standing where it came to rest after the flood. And if you came back down the mountain and crossed the water again, the first territory you would reach on the other side is the one drawn on the front of the tablet with the label Urartu. Finkel's exact words in the video were these: if you went up this mountain all the way, eventually you would see against the night sky or the dark sky of the outer universe, silhouetted the ribs made of wood, as thick as a parsiktu-vessel, of the wreck of the Babylonian Ark, which, like the one in the Bible, came to rest on a mountain. He also said this: from the Babylonian point of view, this was a matter-of-fact thing, that if you did go on this journey, you would see the remnants of this historic boat, which saved all the life of the world, still there in the crags against the dark sky. There are things this reading does not claim. It does not claim the Ark existed. Finkel told The Guardian in January 2014 that he was, in his words, 107% convinced the Ark never existed. What the reading claims is that the Babylonian scribe who made this tablet believed it existed, believed it was findable, and drew a map that included its approximate location relative to Babylon, Urartu, the Bitter River, and the 7-league crossing. This is important because Babylonian flood geography is not uniform. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Tablet 11, the Ark comes to rest on Mount Nimush in the Zagros Mountains of Iraqi Kurdistan, far south of Urartu. In the Sumerian flood story, the hero Ziusudra is sent to Dilmun, a paradise in the east that has nothing to do with mountains at all. The map of the world, by placing its parsiktu-vessel in the 4th nagu next to Urartu, aligns not with the Gilgamesh tradition, but with the tradition preserved in Genesis 8 verse 4. which says, "The Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat." This means the map is evidence that by the 6th century before the Common Era, at least one Babylonian scribal tradition had already shifted the Ark's landing site from the Zagros to Urartu, and that this shift predates or is contemporary with the composition of the biblical flood narrative. The two traditions, Babylonian and Hebrew, converge on the same mountain range independently, or one borrowed from the other, or both drew from an older common source that placed the vessel in the far north rather than the Near East. The classical world knew this tradition too. The Babylonian priest Berossus, writing in Greek around 280 before the Common Era, described the Ark landing in Armenia. His account is preserved through the Jewish historian Josephus, who quotes it in his Antiquities and adds that some people still carry off pieces of the bitumen from the wreck and use them as amulets for the averting of mischiefs. Josephus also cites Hieronymus the Egyptian, Manassas, and Nicolaus of Damascus on a mountain called Baris in Armenia that bore Ark timbers. The late Talmudic text Sanhedrin 96 acclaims that Sennacherib himself brought back a plank of the Ark from the region and carved it into an idol. Whether any of these writers had access to a text like the map of the world is unknown, but they all point the same direction. North, toward Urartu, toward the mountains the Hebrews called Ararat. The tablet's colophon at the end of the reverse says it was copied from its old exemplar and collated. The scribe's personal name is broken, but his father's name survives. It reads Isuru. Finkel noted in the video that Isuru is the Babylonian word for bird. He added, with visible amusement, that this means a member of the bird family produced the world's first bird's-eye view of the known world. There is a final detail worth noting. The closing line of the reverse, after all 8 Nagu have been described, reads, "Of the 4 quadrants of the entire world, whose interior no one can know." The scribe who drew this map knew he was drawing something incomplete. He knew the Nagu extended beyond his ability to describe them. He drew the triangles anyway, gave them what text he had, and then wrote the equivalent of a disclaimer. The world is bigger than this tablet. Nobody can see all of it. This is what we know. 2,600 years later, the tablet is still in a glass case in room 55 of the British Museum. The left side is still missing. The Euphrates still runs through Babylon. The bitter river still encircles everything. And on the reverse, in broken cuneiform that a volunteer student pieced together in 1995, there is still a line about something as thick as a parsiktu-vessel, standing on a mountain in a region the scribe called Urartu, at the far edge of a world whose interior no one can know.